So my name is Teo Georgiev. I'm a Bulgarian who moved to Finland in 2017. So I have been here for about 4 years now. Doing like graphic design, digital design, and in my own time, I'm doing illustration as well. Currently, I work at Bond mostly with digital. I'm also like trying to graduate from Aalto School of Arts with VCT, like visual communication design from that program, and I've been focusing on visual narrative there. So yeah, that's like work-wise, that's the main bits, I guess.
Could you maybe tell a bit more about like the story, how you got into design and like how it all started, and like basically your story as a designer?
Yeah, sure. I got into design a bit more when I was in high school. Like at the time, I was studying in a high school that specialized in mathematics and programming. So we're studying a lot of coding stuff already in high school, like assembler languages and like C++ and Java and all of that, which really doesn't click with my brain. So yeah, I really wasn't engaged in that. But like around the whole tinkering with computers, I kind of like discovered Photoshop, and around that time I was getting into like typical teenage music stuff. So I really enjoyed like album covers, and those were kind of like my gateway into design. A bit more that I wanted to do those kind of stuff. And little by little I started like learning more about photography and like digital tools and art. Then when it came time to apply for university, I got accepted into a graphic design degree in Coventry University in the UK. So I moved to England, where I lived from 2011 to 2017. And yeah, I did graphic design there. Like somewhere along the way, I kind of like discovered that illustration is actually something I really enjoy doing, and I started like mixing them both, or like doing a bit more illustration as well. So kind of like, I don't know, working in between those. And I always kind of feel like I need to specialize in something, but I never did. So quite like I let myself become quite a generalist in that sense. And yeah, like after university, so during the university, like yeah, I did my graphic design degree. After that, I went to work in a corporation as a software designer for a few years, where I did like more UI stuff. And when I decided to leave the UK, I applied for Aalto and got accepted as at the VCD program and came here. And for a few years, I was freelancing mostly with illustration stuff. But because like moving to a new country is a bit difficult, because like I just didn't know that many people, and I didn't have like a network of peers, and yeah, just a network in general. I decided it might be a good move to actually look for a job in a company, or like in a agency, where I can also meet people and learn how the design industry functions in Finland, and get a bit more of a, I don't know, local, like view of the local scene. And yeah, I think that's in a nutshell.
So if I understand correctly, you said that it was like a bit hard to get a job because once you came in Finland, because like it was new, you maybe didn't know that many people. So like, can you maybe elaborate a bit more on that process? Like, how did that look like, and how you managed to like get the internship? Like one of the questions from the student was like, how was the recruiting also process for the initial internship, and like how did you manage all of that while maybe being new to a country? And
yeah, so it was a bit odd, because I was not looking for jobs straight away when I came here. I was freelancing and I wanted to freelance. My issue was like most of the people I knew were from my home country in Bulgaria, and like the jobs that come from there are like a couple of times like lower in terms of commissions than the jobs from here. So I just like, it really wasn't sustainable. During that time, I also got like, I got contacted by one startup, World of Insights, which is based in Agrid, and they were looking for someone who has experience in more like design thinking stuff. Because like their whole thing is like they produce like educational card games and board games and educational
Was it
materials.
was it at the Auto Startup Center?
It was in, yeah, A-Grid.
Yeah, I
Like,
think that's that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I worked part-time for them for about 6 months, and after that I went to do my internship. The thing with the internship was that I actually applied for Bond a couple of times. So the first time when I applied for Bond was in 2014, I think, because I did like a year of Erasmus in Finland. So I studied like 1 year in Lahti. And when I was looking for summer jobs, I applied there. And I think I applied like once more at some point. I didn't get a response. And then on the third time, I got a response for like the internship. And it was a bit of like I don't know, for me, I kind of had to pick between getting like a full-time contract with the startup and then like an internship. And the internship was not as well paid and not as secure. But I had managed to save a bit of money, and also I had like a period of like serious burnout, so I really, really needed some kind of like low responsibility work for a couple of months. Um, so in that sense, it was quite useful. But in terms of like how I actually found those opportunities, it was a lot about just posting stuff on social media and like getting in touch and like redoing my portfolio like 20 times um, in order to fit a certain job application or like a certain project that I was applying for. So yeah, tailoring
So
the portfolio was I think it was quite important. And also just like sending if you want to work somewhere, like just to send an application like a couple of times, because you never know how the person has been feeling on the other end, or like whether your documents have reached them, or maybe someone else is going to look at your stuff who's going to like your work more. And there are like so many factors that are not really under anyone's control that go into the application process, that I think it's totally fine to like apply a couple of times for a position and even like call the people and ask what's happening and whether they view the application and ask for some feedback and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is really inspiring, right? Because like I feel like often when you apply, you're like, oh, they they don't want me, right? Like it can feel
Yeah,
like my portfolio is like not good enough to, so they just like rejected me. So like, what is the point of applying again? Or like, yeah. So I think this
yeah, it
is
can
really
get
good
really
to hear.
personal. It can feel really personal after a while, like when you've applied for like few places and you get like, especially when you don't hear anything back, like that's like really harsh. And I kind of feel like the whole industry can be a bit more on top of that, like replying to people. Especially if you've done like many rounds of interviews and you're like few people at the end and they don't even like, I don't know, they don't make the effort to reply to people who have been rejected. It's really, I don't know, really frustrating.
Mm.
But yeah, oftentimes it's not personal. Oftentimes it's just like someone was not in the right mood. Or even if the work was not correct, maybe you can like tailor your portfolio better. Like, and maybe for a agency position, not put so much illustration, but put a bit more of the design work. Um, yeah, those kind of stuff. It's a lot about like targeting the positions that you want to get.
Mm-hmm. You really, like you mentioned, this tailoring of portfolio, which I think is like something kind of interesting. Like, can you maybe elaborate a bit more on that and like how you do that? And like if somebody who is like watching this wants to do that, like what would be your advice for them?
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm gonna start speaking about portfolios, and my portfolio website is like nowhere being updated. But like one way to do it, like I think it's good to have like both a PDF portfolio and a website portfolio. Like the website, just it's a general presence on the internet that you need to have. If you manage to break your work into some categories, like let's say for me, like the main three pillars are like illustration, graphic design, digital. If I manage to get like those three categories and be able to, I don't know, somehow easily reassemble them, whether through tags or categories or some other way, like that's a really nice way to tailor a certain page to look a certain way for a specific position. With PDF, it might be a bit easier, just with a PDF. make an InDesign document, put all your work, and then like export only the relevant pages when you're applying for a certain position. Like, I think that's quite a flexible way to just like tailor your portfolio and like get it done. But it does require like more time to actually look through the stuff and like keep them up to date.
Yeah. But with the website, like, did you have then multiple versions of your website, like parallel, like live, or how did that work?
When I applied at Bond, I remember I sent a PDF for that, and I had like my website being more illustration work. And in the PDF, I put more graphic design work, which is more relevant for them. Right now, what I've been kind of like thinking with the website is just like to have like a general website which has like a collection of all my work, and then to have a couple of categories like design work and illustration work, and then to kind of like split those a bit, so I can kind of like send off the design work if it's relevant, or send off the illustration work if it's relevant. So you can kind of like, if you use like some tagging or like some categorization, you can achieve a bit more granular view of your projects there. But like, it's nice to have just one page which is all your work, and you don't really touch that unless you want to update or like remove something, because that's kind of like something that should be easy to find.
How was it to getting a job as an international specifically? Like, you already touched up on that a bit, but if you have like something more to say about that.
So Bond is really nice in the sense that there are quite a few people that are non-Finnish, and also like the company, it has offices in a couple of other countries, so there is more of a international atmosphere and like attitude there, and like the language is not such a big issue. But yeah, like before that, when I've been looking for other positions, and now sometimes when I'm just like, when I stumble upon like a position by other agencies, like it is quite frustrating, and like it really narrows down the options, because so many agencies like are looking for Finnish speakers, and it's kind of understandable, because in the end we're in Finland, and like a lot of agencies which do more of a service design stuff, it requires like so much communication and like interviewing in their work that you should know the language. But it does make it like really frustrating when you have to look for a job, and like the only thing that can like sets you apart is the language. Yeah, especially like it's really annoying when I see like a post on LinkedIn or Facebook saying that like we have a open position written in English, and then it turns out it's a position that requires Finnish, and it feels like the carrot has been like dangled in front of you and like taken away after that. I mean, like, I'm not looking for a job. It's just like it just leaves some kind of like a bad taste in the mouth of it. But yeah, I think the language is the main issue. So yeah, if people have the time to focus on the language, then yeah, definitely they should go for that. But also, I kind of feel like there is an opportunity for some studios to open up and be a bit more international and kind of like loosen up on that criteria. I think they're missing like a lot of, I don't know, a lot of really talented people in that way.
Maybe one question kind of about like your career path and your profile as a designer. Do you see yourself working as a designer like as you're working now for many years to come, or do you think that your like career path will like evolve or change into something different, or like?
I don't know, because whenever I stop doing design, I kind of like miss doing design, and then when I start doing design, I miss doing illustration. That's like really difficult to balance. I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, like I'm definitely going to work in the creative field, because that's where I feel comfortable, and like I don't think I know how to do anything else, to be honest. Whether that's going to be graphic design, illustration, or digital, I think I'm gonna go a bit more with the flow and see where that gets me. Right now, like personally, I feel like the most comfortable in illustration, but with graphic design, like what I've kind of noticed is like graphic design is something that I really enjoy doing in a team. Like design, I really enjoy doing in teams. So like an agency environment, which is a smaller agency such as Bond, like small in terms of like there's not hundreds of people, and like 10 levels of hierarchy. That's quite nice because I can kind of like bounce off ideas and like build upon stuff, and we can kind of like collaborate really easily and learn from each other. So I kind of like, I do want to keep that because, yeah, I just like learning and working in that kind of way. But yeah, maybe there's going to be a bit more illustration in my future, just because like for me personally, that feels like really comfortable space to work in and to explore. And I feel like that's a place where I have like more touch points to stuff like books and music and culture, like the culture, the field of culture, which interests me as well.
But I feel there's like something really unique about you, that you have kind of like multiple, like as you call it also pillars that are like in the portfolio, or like multiple things that you are doing, like illustration, graphic design, like digital design, and like you kind of keep doing all of them. Do you think that, and you said that you kind of enjoy like all of it, but do you think that eventually at some point, like it will narrow down like a lot, or do you think that you will like want to keep all of it? You already mentioned that you imagine yourself doing like a bit more illustration, but
yeah, I feel like a master. What is it called? Jack of all trades and master of none type of person. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really want to. I don't want to say that I'm going to focus only on one, but I'm going to focus on typography, or like I'm going to focus only on illustration, because there's stuff that I'm going to miss from the others. Like,
yeah,
like for example, when I left my job in the UK, like I kind of decided I don't want to do like digital design anymore, because it wasn't something that I was particularly passionate at that moment in time. But later on, I started like missing it, and like missing that kind of like, I don't know, tinkering with tech and learning about tech and like how technology works on like more human and societal level. And then I started listening to more podcasts about like digital design and I don't know, learning Figma and whatnot. But I don't know, I end up missing those things in the end. So I don't know how to answer that. Like, it would be great if I can focus on one thing and actually like master it. But at this point, I'm not really rushing to decide which one is it.
I'm just thinking, like, what do you, in your experience, like, what is the perspective of like the companies, like on this? Like, do they appreciate it? Like, you can do multiple things, or is it more a limitation, like that you cannot focus? Like, what do you think?
So it really depends on the company that you go into, I think. For an agency, what I found is quite nice to be able to have like a bit more of a broad set of skills, because if you look at the career path in like a studio agency environment, you start from kind of, let's say, an intern, then to an individual practitioner, and then maybe like art director, creative director, and like in that role, you're not so much producing assets, but more like directing people. And in order to direct people, you need to have like this really broad vision that understands like how photography would work and illustration would work and like layout and so on. So in that sense, it's quite nice to have touched upon those fields at some point in your career. I think like if somebody wants to focus like more on one thing, like let's say typography only, then maybe looking at the more of a freelance collaborator role would be better suited, so that they can actually like produce really high quality typefaces and they can be commissioned by studios to produce like custom fonts and so on. And same with illustrations. Like, we don't have, I think there are like quite a few studios, like quite a few, like there are few studios that have in-house illustrators. Usually like illustrators are being like commissioned for a specific job, because like as an illustrator, you also have one or a few ways of working, or like styles in which to work. So like you can't really use those styles for every job that comes into the studio. Otherwise, like the style just like loses a bit of the uniqueness. In that way, it's like nice to develop those styles that you're like into, and then kind of like reach out to different studios and like different agencies and kind of like try to sell them as skills that they can use for some campaign or like rebranding or whatever. I don't know if that answers the question, but like, yeah, it really depends on the career path, I think, that you wanna take. I kind of feel like for me, working in an agency or like in a company, it has been quite helpful to be a bit more of a generalist.
Yeah. Maybe now we can talk a bit more about like your work experience at Bond. Like I'm kind of curious, like what are all the things that you do, like what does your typical day look like? Like what are all the things that you do during a typical day?
Yeah, I don't know, like right now, especially because most of the work is being from home, it's 95% sitting in front of the computer and tinkering with stuff. The last few months have been a lot of work in Figma and After Effects for some website redesigns. Yeah, then just like planning the layout, creating all the components, collaborating with some of my colleagues, and then doing those animations as well, and how they should look, and then talking with the development team about what's possible, what's not possible. And I moved into that more digital role in March. Before that, I was working kind of like in between digital, print, wherever it's needed. So yeah, yeah, I don't know if I can give you like a proper breakdown of the time, because right now it's pretty much like sitting in front of the computer. We don't have that many meetings, which is great because it doesn't really fragment my time too much. Like I remember when I was working in corporate, like there were so many meetings. Like I could barely do any work because there were like so many meetings. And now it's perfect, at least like as a designer, that they don't have to attend everything and they can just focus on producing the work. Yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much in terms of schedule. I don't think there's much going on.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, is there any specific project that you like really enjoyed, that you would like highlight, and why was that?
Yeah, I was working as a assistant, one of the assistants on the Kalevala project, like the Kalevala Koro rebranding, which was like the jewelry, brand. It's a Finnish jewelry brand, and they had to they just had to rebrand. I think they came to us to Bond in the winter of 2019, and we worked almost a year on that, and the release was last year in September. So it was kind of helping in the initial state, and then with some of the production stuff, and with a bit with the web design there. But like for me, it was really interesting because this was like the first project in Bond that I saw go through from the beginning to the end. And when I was an intern there, it started when I was an intern, and because I knew it was supposed to start, I kind of like asked the CEO of the company if I can kind of like attend some of the starting brainstorming meetings and kind of like shadow the people who are involved into that, because I wanted to see how the process is going on from the beginning, and I feel like that kind of helped me to help me like throughout the process. Yeah, and Caligula was just like, it was really interesting because there were like so many facets of that. Like there was the photography and also the custom typography and the layouts and picking colors, creating like the palettes, and then the web designs and packaging and so on. And I wasn't really like there's not like one thing that I can say I did like this exact thing, like because it's just like the dynamic doesn't work this way. But it was really, really interesting to observe that and to kind of like help with some of the brainstormings and to with some of the production stuff, or like testing some of the fonts and testing some of the colors and the layouts and so on. And I think the result was really nice in the end. It was just really, really nice to see it come alive.
Now, when you like talked about projects you really enjoyed, like in general, what do you think are like the things that you enjoy about Bond, or maybe also compared to like your experiences previously, like working at I don't know or like as a freelancer and as in the corporate, like what are the things that you appreciate?
So with Bond, I really appreciate that the work is really dynamic, and like you're not on one project for 18 months until it gets released. That was something that was like a bit difficult when I was working in corporate, that like it's really, really difficult to see the end of a project, or to see it through the end. Everything was in process. Everything was like not finished. And with Bond, you can kind of like see the whole project happening in the course of like a few months or like in the course of like a year, which is fine. And like in between, like you don't really work on that one project the whole time. You just have like so many different tasks and like different projects. So it's really dynamic and keeps my interest going. So that's one thing. Also, like working with the people there is really nice because like they do really high quality work, and it's just like great to learn through osmosis. Kind of like just sitting and observing. Sometimes my colleagues, what they're doing on After Effects or like Cinema 4D, it kind of like helps me to, I don't know, the least to get like more motivated to learn something myself. Yeah, so just like that kind of environment is, I found it like super valuable, and I've had it in previous jobs as well. It's one of the things I really, really like at the workplaces where I've been, that I can learn from my peers, and that's a big thing that I was missing when I was freelancing. Like freelancing felt really lonely in terms of like learning new stuff, and also in terms of like checking my work, whether it's good, whether it's not, how it can be improved. That's something that I can get like really quick feedback and get some fresh ideas from my colleagues as well. So yeah, I think that's great. And yeah, Bond generally has like quite interesting projects and interesting concepts that are just feels nice to execute them. And yeah, see them come alive.
Yeah, you mentioned this, like, learning from peers and seeing like what other like your colleagues do, like with, I don't know, Cinema 4D. But I'm like curious, like, did that change during Corona, or like do you still, like when you, I don't know if you work from home full time, or like do you think that these opportunities are like less frequent, or do you still get that even in these remote times?
No, it's definitely less frequent. Like it's not as organic as it would be if we were in the studio the whole time. So I'm going to the office like a bit more often now, just because they also live nearby and it's easy to walk there. But yeah, in the Corona at some point it was just like really, really difficult to, I don't know, get myself like also motivated to learn new things in that sense. It's
I think
so
it's the
much
same for the
nicer.
students.
Yeah, totally. I know. I think it's for everyone. Like that's just like all the motivation, all the everything just falls on you personally instead of like having it more naturally appear. But yeah, now when I'm going to the studio, it's again like kind of like getting back into that mode of like looking what people are doing and learning from that little by little. And yeah, it's definitely better in that sense.
So we talked about like what you enjoy about Bond. Like, is there anything, or like what do you enjoy the least about your job?
Oof. That sometimes the deadlines are really short and you just need to like, yeah, there are periods when you just need to get on with the job and just like produce stuff really quickly and then like switch to another task and produce that really quickly. And sometimes it requires like a lot of domain switching, like in the course of like 2 days to switch from like print digital to motion, and that can throw you off a bit, especially if you're getting some client feedback. So yeah, I have those kind of like short periods when I kind of feel like a vending machine a bit. But yeah, but it's kind of like, yeah, but I think that's overall like an industry thing, to be honest. I kind of feel the same way in freelancing. And with Bond, it's nice that I can speak to the people, to the producers who are in charge of the workload, and we can kind of figure out how to redistribute or like rearrange the work and the deadlines so the pressure can go away a bit. But yeah, sometimes it can be quite hectic and stressful. But yeah, I think that's overall like a design studio thing.
Damn, I wanted to ask a question, but I forgot.
That's all right.
Maybe I remember. Well, okay. One question that apparently one of the students reacting on the Instagram to the stories was really curious about is they're interested if you think that hot dog is a sandwich.
I've never thought about that, but no, I don't know. Because I mean, like taxonomically, maybe, but in my head, if I want a sandwich, I would mean something totally different. So yeah, maybe not.
Okay.
I'm gonna say not just because not. I don't know. Is pizza a sandwich? Because it's still like doughy thing with something on top. I don't know, that kind of thing.
Okay, let's go with not then.
I'm gonna say no, no sandwich.
Okay.
But I'm gonna think about that today. Yeah.
Hopefully it will not get you too consumed. Yeah, I remembered my question actually from before that
Okay.
I forgot to ask. Because you are still a student or you're still finishing up your master's, like how does
Yeah.
that look like? Do you work full time, or like how do you manage combining work and studies? Because that's also like a lot of students I think struggle with that.
I really don't manage that well. Yeah, I'm not managing that well. I think that's quite hard, and I need to actually have a chat with my managers about this at some point. Because like the only thing that I have left is my thesis, and I need to like finish it off because I do have like the groundwork. I just need to like make the stuff. But yeah, it's quite difficult, especially when you have like a bigger production part, because you're doing some design work during the day, and then you need to come back home and continue working in that kind of like mode of creative problem solving, and it's really exhausting, especially because I have some freelance as well going on in parallel. So yeah, for the last couple of months I've set my thesis aside for a bit until I can figure out what my next steps are and how to combine those a bit better. But if the students have time to have the opportunity to work part-time or to take some time off to finish their thesis and just get it out of the way, or like to do it like to the quality that they want to do it, that would be great. Like it would be really nice. Otherwise, it's just hanging around and causing more stress. But yeah, it's difficult and it requires a lot of organization and also sacrifice from the personal time. But yeah.
But have you? I'm just curious. Have you worked like since the beginning of the internship in Bond full time, or?
Yeah. When I started my internship in August 2019, and I was doing courses. I was still doing courses, so I did. I don't know how many. I think I did quite a few courses that way, like my thesis seminar, and I did like a most of a comics minor that way. So yeah, if there were lectures, like because I'm listening to a lot of podcasts, like lectures felt like just putting the headphones on, especially now with remote work, and just like listening to the teacher as a podcaster. And then like the good thing about Bond is that it has like quite a flexible working time, and you can kind of like negotiate that to some sense. So if I have to like take 2 hours in the morning to do some kind of course, then I can just do a bit like 2 hours more work the next day or something like that, just to kind of like compensate the workload. Or kind of like organize my workload in a way that it combines both things. But yeah, I managed to do those. It just required a bit more work and reorganization of the workload.
Thanks. Is there any question that I didn't ask and you would like to ask yourself for this interview?
To ask myself? No, I don't think so. I don't really like asking myself anything.
Okay.
It's nothing.
Okay,
Really.
cool. Then the final question. What would be your advice for students that are still in their studies or maybe graduating soon and are looking for a job? Like, what do you think is the most important thing?
Just to send a lot of applications and follow up on those and call people and get in touch with people, like, and also to say that they're looking for jobs. I think like a lot of students are just sending like 1 or 2 applications, wanting to hear back from those, and then sending a couple of more, and that's like really not a productive way to get your foot in the door. Yeah, and also put your work up, make it visible, tell people that you're looking for jobs. You just never know which one of your friends or acquaintances might know someone who is looking for a designer or like an illustrator or a creative in some sort of way. And then also maybe like assess what kind of job you want, like, because sometimes I think like some of my classmates might be better off, like the work that they're doing might be better off as a freelancer or like an individual practitioner, but they're not really leaning into that instead of chasing like the studio job. But of course, like that really depends on financial, like on the financial abilities. Yeah, but kind of like make us try to assess like what kind of environment you would like to work in, and then tailor your portfolio to the specific applications that you want to address.
Thank you so much, Teo. This is really nice to talk with you and hear all what you had to say. And yeah, thanks for all the advice and all the sharing the experience that you had.
Yeah, no worries. You're welcome.